Welcome everyone to the employment space. This channel is designed to bring you a 360-degree view of the employment relationship directly from an employment attorney. I designed this channel to bring this informational, educational information to employers, employees, independent contractors, vendors, employment counsel who are my colleagues, as well as HR professionals. And I just had so much information that I wanted to bring to you today. I'm actually in the middle of a federal employment law series as I am starting this channel. I have litigated for about a little under 12 years, and I've been employment counsel for about 17. And so, I just thought it was necessary to start this channel, but even more necessary as I've heard about all of these layoffs going on in the U.S. I was literally in the middle of a federal employment law series in this channel, as I've just stated. And I was in the midst of going through the production of the Equal Pay Act, and I had to discontinue that just for this temporary halt because I thought that this was an opportunity to talk to you all about the layoffs, but more importantly, of course, I can't give you legal advice. This post is for informational and educational purposes only. But I decided to do this post because I thought it would be something interesting for people who view it, especially in individuals who have just been laid off from their employment and you have been given a severance agreement. So I wanted to take this opportunity to address things based on my experience, because of course you're not my clients, but I just thought that it was something I was interested in doing for the channel. I thought that it was, I think it would be definitely for informational purposes only, and it would shed some light on some things. So, especially given the fact that Amazon, I believe, has just laid off another 16,000 employees, not the only company, as you know, that's been doing layoffs. So that prompted me with, just putting together some ideas based on my experience as an employment litigator, as an employment attorney, that would be helpful. So let's get into it. Again, this post is for employees or individuals who have been subject to a layoff and have been given a severance agreement. And based on the comments and if it seems like it's been a helpful video, I may go into another video for individuals who are going through a layoff who have not been given a severance agreement. So I just want to kind of share some helpful educational points at these very difficult times. I do extend my deepest and sincerest apologies. I know that it's not the easiest to be during these times in this country experiencing a layoff, and I wish you all the very best at this time. I truly do. So let's get into this stuff, this information. What is a layoff, right? We know that a layoff is something that it's a business decision. It's a business decision to make changes to the workforce by reducing the number of employees within the workforce. It shouldn't be done for discriminatory, retaliatory reasons, but the result of a layoff is going to be a reduction in some way of the workforce, and it's not a termination based on, like I said, for cause. It's not because you have performed poorly. It's not because you violated a policy or there was some other cause for termination, maybe like a conduct reason or strained employment relationship, but rather it is a business decision to reduce the workforce. So that's where it is. I think that some people take layoffs very, very harshly, and understandably so, because it is a loss of job, it's a loss of income, especially in today's time. And, it's just a hard pill to swallow. I think that as employment counsel, I can tell you that layoffs oftentimes don't have to have anything to do with performance. So you can actually be a stellar employee and still find yourself a part of a layoff. Layoffs happen for different reasons. It can happen for performance. It can happen because of different business reasons, right? It's not unexpected to have some very stellar workers, individuals who are employees, subject to a layoff. Okay, so just kind of know that layoffs have nothing, going through a layoff and being subject to an employee subject to a layoff does not mean that you're a poor performer, is what I'm basically saying. I want to move toward what happens in companies regarding a severance. First and foremost, a severance is not required. A severance is not an obligation by a company. A severance is not a federal law requirement, a mandated requirement, and no state requires severance pay. It is something that a company does out of policy or practice, out of choice. And typically a layoff, when you hear a layoff, it goes in tandem with a severance agreement. But just to kind of let you know that, some people can be released from a company en masse, but not given a severance. It's just typically not a really good look in my opinion. Okay, in professional opinion, for educational informational purposes, it's typically not a good look. In my experience, and I've had corporate clients across the country, typically when you hear layoff and it's a large number layoff, there may be some sort of severance accompanying that. But it's generally, a severance agreement is generally not required. Now, a severance agreement is a contract, right? It is an agreement, it is a contract. So it is your responsibility to check out the terms of that severance agreement, making sure that the information is correct, right? That's what I would do. If I had a severance agreement in front of me, I would make sure that my information is correct. I would make sure that if I had any PTO, I would know if it's going to be paid out to me. I want to make sure that I'm being paid in compliance with what my state says that I live in, says how I'm supposed to be paid on my last day of pay. I want to know if I have anything else in my leave banks that I'm entitled to. Oftentimes in the agreement, it talks about the number of weeks that you get like severance pay. And an organization, a company, they can all drive and create what their policy is going to be. In my experience, generally severance pay is made, for example, like 1 week for every year of service. But of course, you have employees that maybe just did 3 months or 6 months. So what do you do with those? That's up to a company. A company designs its severance policy, okay? So it's important to make sure that you go over your information, make sure that it's accurate, ask the questions, go to your HR professional, ask the right questions. Also, you may have information in your severance agreement about benefits. It is going to be your responsibility to really understand your terms and to seek counsel to understand those terms. That is your responsibility. If you have to sign up for COBRA, make sure you do that. If anything dealing with your benefits, for example, typically when it comes to medical benefits, if you have medical benefits, they will exhaust at the end of the month. So you want to make sure that, and what is that, that's actually next week sometime, right? So you want to make sure that you take advantage of any medical, dental coverage. If you have an HSA, an FSA, that you're following up with your employer with benefits or whomever is the point person, so that you can make sure that you're benefiting as much as you can during this time of going through a layoff. Okay, that's really key. Most agreements will have a neutral reference in there, so it talks about the fact that your dates of employment and positions held will be all that's provided to a prospective employer. So that's really good. That's the standard in the employment relationship. So it's not personal. It's just dates of employment and positions hired. Okay. And I apologize that this is not as with all the bells and whistles that are how I like to post things. It's just that during these times of having a layoff, I can only imagine what's all on people's minds when they're going through this. So I'm just trying to give you the information as it's coming up in my mind, hoping that it's going to be helpful for educational, informational purposes only, of course, If there are any other terms in the agreement that you have to adhere to. Make sure you understand that. You know, as a former employment litigator, I used to read through documents like orders from the court, orders from a judge, you know, motions and stuff like that. And I always gave myself a rule to read it 4 times. And that's because the first 2 times when you read it, when you read something, you're like riddled with emotions. So I would say, that's what I would say. I would say that to friends and family, like when it comes to a severance agreement, read it 4 or 5 times. Read it. Don't take your time because there's a time limit. We're going to talk about that too. But read it first when you get your emotions out of the way. Okay, read it a second time, get your emotions out of the way. By the 3rd or 4th time, now you're able to take in and digest the terms, because you want to make sure that if there's anything on your side that you need to do, that you do it. Okay, because there's things that the company needs to do, there are things that employees need to do that will trigger the obligation to release the funds to you. So it's very important that you understand, you know, what's going on. And so I can't tell you yay or nay to sign it because I'm not your counsel. I can't tell you that it's a good agreement if you have a severance agreement because I'm not your counsel. But it is your responsibility that when you sign it, you're basically saying to the organization that you consult a counsel and you understand the terms of the agreement, and you're going to follow those terms. Okay. Let's see, consideration. You know, make sure that you read it, the agreement thoroughly, the severance agreement, and understand how much time you have to consider the agreement. If you are under 40 years of age, you're going to have a certain amount of time to consider it, or maybe none at all. You just have 7 days to rescind. In other words, sign it, and then you have 7 days to take back your signature. And for workers who are at least 40 years of age or older, you should be receiving at least 21 days. Unless there's something else special going on with your company, but you typically should be, if you're 40 years of age and older, you should be, you should have at least 21 days to consider, 7 days to rescind. That's the general rule. Okay. If you have questions, of course, I'm not your counsel. I don't know your company. I'm just going through general things based on, all of my years of experience as employment counsel. Okay. So that's where it is. Also, you know, keeping in mind, like when you're going to sign it, because when you sign it is going to be when the company is triggered to pay. And then that's basically where it is when it comes to severance and like the initial experience and obligations that follow getting the news of being laid off. Clearly, the layoff is probably due to AI. And again, it has nothing to do with performance. It's about, it seems like, and I'm not talking about Amazon because I can't talk about Amazon. I'm just saying that it was the layoffs from Amazon that prompted me, that inspired me to do this video. I can't speak on behalf of Amazon. I don't know anything about Amazon's counsel. I don't know anything about that. I'm just talking about being inspired about talking about layoffs. Okay. So that's key there. I'm going to end the video here because I just wanted to kind of see what kind of comments I get, and if this video is something that's needed right now. Leave in the comment section below anything that you may want me to kind of like iron through. If you've been laid off and you've received a severance, put a Y in the comment section. If you have been laid off by any company and you have not received a severance, put an N in the comment section. And again, let me know if there's something else you want me to talk about. I could go into unemployment benefits, but let's see how this does and if it's really needed. So I'm going to end here. I wish you all the very, very, very best. Please like, share, subscribe. Comment, and I'll look up at the comments to see if there's anything else that may be helpful during these times. Okay, some more educational information. So I'll leave it here. Check out my other check out my other content. I've been very selective on this new channel of what I want to talk about the employment relationship, and I just had to interrupt that series to talk about this. Okay, so this is going to be unedited, and I'm just going to put it out because I want it to be genuine and authentic. Okay, so I will be checking out the comments, I'll see you next time. I wish you all the best of luck. All right.